welcome to Sports Talk with L-Beasley. It is Wednesday afternoon here for me in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm about to do a little NFL, NBA talk. It's always something going on in the world of sports, period. But nothing too big in either NFL or NBA to the point where it's been huge news. So I'm just going to, go over a couple things. I mean, obviously the Sandusky thing was for college football with him getting sentenced. And some people want to know my opinion on that. I don't really have much to say when it comes to the whole Sandusky issue, mainly due to the fact that I don't pity or respect anybody who molests men, women, children, rape, whatever. I have no sympathy for him, and then his actions have, caused that program, Penn State football program, and its students and student athletes to suffer for, things that they had no control over. Talking about the students and the student athletes here. I don't have any pity on it, so it's really no sense in me discussing it. So I'm just going to leave that alone. As far as some people also felt like Roger Goodell lifting the suspensions of, some of the Saint players were, big news. For me, it's somewhat big news, but at this point with Roger Goodell, I either feel like he's abusing his power or he doesn't know what he wants. Because, you're changing your story, or you're reducing the sentences based off new evidence that I honestly felt was probably there from the first place, or you actually suspended them based off your thoughts on this situation, even if they didn't have anything to do with the bounty. I just really don't, at this point, Roger Goodell, I'm just kind of like, you want to lift their suspensions, fine, but what does that mean for, any other suspensions that happen? You're reducing them, you're changing them. I don't really care at this point. I said, good news for the Saints as far as the players who were lifted. You get your players back in a couple weeks, and hopefully to help improve your team if you're a Saints fan. But I don't have much to say on that. So just moving on to some of the other stuff that's been happening in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has basically said, that he hasn't been playing well. Tell us something we don't know, Aaron. But pretty much he said he has set the bar high and he expects to play at a higher level. He's been making some mistakes that he's not used to making. He didn't really pinpoint why he is suffering this year, basically, which, I'm going to get on that in a minute. But he also said that, he's going to clean up some of the things that he's not doing well, that he should be doing well. But basically the proof is in the pudding. He's not getting the job done, and he has to look at himself first and work on himself, and then that way he can help his team. And I agree with everything that he said, but, like I always said before, Paul, when it comes to Rodgers and those Green Bay Packers, he didn't pinpoint what's wrong. In my opinion, for the first time, at least in the last couple of years, the Green Bay Packers are one-dimensional, which is hurting them. When you don't have your run game going, it's going to hurt your team. I've constantly said that, you had Cedric Benson, but he wasn't getting the job done. Now he's hurt. He's going to be out for a while, if not for the season. So you're losing. You don't have any running game. So now everybody knows you're pretty much putting the ball in the air. Now you have capable receivers. You have a capable quarterback. That's true. And like I said, at the end of the day, the offensive line has been, pretty terrible. It's been a minute since I've seen this horrible Green Bay offensive line play this way. So, at the end of the day, it still goes back to the thing I said. It's not like Aaron's playing perfect. It's not like Aaron is making the perfect pass every single time. But at the end of the day, I think when you're used to having a running game, used to having a running back you can fall back on, that your offensive line is going to protect you, you have less things to worry about. Like I said, for the first time in, at least the last couple of years, they don't have a running game, and their offensive line is not playing well, which is causing more stress and causing him to put more pressure on Rodgers. And I think he can handle it. I think it takes some time to get adjusted to. I think that's what it is. And as far as, I always kind of wonder about the chemistry. I know it's been some small chemistry issues, that Aaron's not really a leader or the leader that he should be. There have always been questions, him and some of the guys on the offensive line, him and some receivers don't get along. It's always been rumors and whatnot that there's some chemistry issues. But until I at least really start hearing about it, I'm not really reading too much into it. But it does make me wonder if there's some chemistry issues going there. Because a lot of times they look playing out of sync or like they just not connecting with each other. So Aaron Rodgers, I do hope to see an improvement. For me, actions speak louder than words. We'll see what he does. It is good to see he realizing it. He's making statements about it. But like I said, actions speak louder than words. Another thing that's going on in the world of the NFL, the Detroit Lions, my hometown team, were apparently, criticized by a rival general manager. A rival general manager told Pro Football Weekly that the Lions' talent level has been oversold and called out defensive linemen Ndamukong Suh and Cliff Averill in particular as players who were overhyped. He also said that Jim Schwartz, the head coach of the Detroit Lions, and the general manager of the Detroit Lions, Martin Mayhew, are both overrated. He also went on to say that one thing is clear, that they are not close as people have tried to make it seem. they are a one-dimensional offensive team. That quarterback, Matthew Stafford, basically, people are starting to figure him out, and that if you take Calvin Johnson out the game, who else do they have that can beat you? He said he does not think that they are a team, or this rival general manager, of course, I'm assuming this. They are not a team that they think is not a team that he thinks is ready. And I have to say, well, most of what he said, I do agree with. I've said it countless times. I'll start off with the offensive part when he said that the team is one-dimensional. How many times have I said that the Lions are one-dimensional? They are one-dimensional. They've been one-dimensional for the last couple of years. They're not running the ball, they're passing the ball. If they can't run the ball, they pass the ball well. If they can't pass the ball well, they can run the ball well. And sometimes they just can't do anything well. But when it comes to the Lions, yeah, they are one-dimensional. They've always been like that, and now they're starting to try to get their running game going with LaSure, now finally being healthy, and with the addition of rookie Bell, they're trying to get the running game going. But at the end of the day, I think some of it, I do agree with the part about Matthew Stafford. People have figured him out, and I constantly said that about the Lions. When it comes to, a lot of people have taken consideration as a defense, this was the first year defensive coordinators and defensive players could look at a full year of Matthew Stafford from last year. In the past, you've only got to see Matthew maybe twice, 3 times a season since he's been in the league, because he was always hurt. You got more Sean Hill and Drew Stanton than you did, Stafford. So for the first time, like I said, last year, you really had a full season of seeing Matthew Stafford, what he likes to do, what he feels comfortable with, reading his, basically learning what to read with him. Because like I said, in the past, you couldn't do that. And like I said, it's just something I think people kind of overlooked. And that doesn't excuse Matthew's bad play or the bad offensive calling. I'm just saying, I do agree that people have figured out Matthew Stafford somewhat. And now he has to make adjustments just like every other quarterback does when they begin to figure you out. You know what I mean? In a way, this is almost like a Matthew Stafford sophomore year, because he's always been unhealthy. He might as well be like Cam and them going through their sophomore year, because he's never been fully healthy. Last year was his full healthy year where he could go the entire season and just play. And the defenses can finally look at film and figure out what he does well, what he doesn't do well, how he reads, and all this other stuff. As far as the Calvin Johnson, if he's not in the game, the problem I have with, it's not even when he's not in the game. When he's in the game, they don't use him. And when they do use him, they don't always use him properly. I forget out of the game. He's generally not out of the game. They put him out of the game by not passing him the ball and not giving him opportunities to go out and get it, which is really my problem. My problem is they have other receivers who can go out there and perform. They just don't do it. Pettigrew should be able to catch the ball and actually hold on to it. I'm still pissed that he let somebody take the ball from me. Ain't nobody taking the ball from me. But at the end of the day, he got other receivers. Nate Burleson, he play when he want to play. He has a high level. He can play at a high level when he wants to play. I know he's a role player type receiver, but he can play when he want to play. He just chooses not to all the time. Titus Young, if it ain't head issues and discipline issues, he just playing crazy. So they have receivers. They just don't make the plays when needed, which seems to be a problem going on in the NFL with certain receivers. So, like I said, are they one-dimensional? Yes. And like I said, another problem I have with the Lions offensively is just, I understand they're trying to get their running game going, but sometimes they are too dependent on the running game, running 2 straight times when you didn't really get anything the first time, or you didn't. And now you're selling for all these third down drives, third down, conversions, and it's not working in your favor. So if I'm the Lions, you want to establish your running game, but don't go away from what you do best offensively, which is pass the ball. I said, get Calvin in the slot way early. Stop putting him, I don't understand why y'all wait till the fourth quarter when y'all down to put Calvin in the slot. Sometimes just throw it up. Take a couple risky plays. Stafford got the arm just a couple times. Just throw it up to Calvin. And like I said, I'm trying to encourage Nate and them. Get in the game more. Do what you're supposed to. Catch the ball. Show some of that speed and good hands that you guys have, except for Pettigrew, because obviously he can't do nothing right. And then just defensively, as far as the comments he made, is Cliff Averill overrated? Yeah. I always kind of felt that. And Ndamukong Suh, I don't really know what his problem is. I started questioning Ndamukong Suh last year when he was stumping people on the field and driving his cars in the poles and whatnot. I don't really know what's going on with those guys. Cliff Averill, like I said, to me, to me, that whole defensive line has always been overrated. Like I said, when everybody was all excited, we got Ndamukong Suh, we got Cliff, we got Van and Bosch, we went and got Nick Fairley, who I never wanted the Lions to draft, by the way. I always felt he was overrated, even at Arbor. I said this defensive line has always, to me personally, been a little overrated. Because at the end of the day, I don't care. They not getting any pressure on the quarterback. So I get his point, but I'm not gonna just say Ndamukong Suh and Cliff. The whole defensive line to me is overrated, not just them. But I agree with what he said with that. I mean, they playing overrated, but I think Ndamukong Suh still has a skill set. The rest of them I really never thought had a skill set. I don't really know what Ndamukong Suh's problem is at this time. If it's just he's just not trying, if it's just these schemes are that good or what. I don't really know what it is with that. And then, I mean, it goes back to the discipline thing too. You know, once again, no discipline, beating yourself up, shooting yourself in the foot with flags. You know, pushing yourself back 5-6 yards, which does make a difference with a team like the Detroit Lions. Little things like that. Off-season discipline is going to lead to on-the-field, discipline. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you know, it's been said that it fired up Dominic Raiola, the center for the Detroit Lions. And quite frankly, he said he called it a coward kind of statement. I don't think it's a coward kind of statement. I think he's right. And the fact that it took that to fire you up, and that's what pisses me off about the Lions. Oh, well, that fires me up. This is what Raiola's saying. It fires me up. You know, they taking a shot at the Lions organization. You're taking a shot at your own organization by the way that y'all are playing on a consistent basis. It shouldn't take a rival general manager comment to get you fired up. You should be fired up just based off the fact that you only got one win this season, where y'all are projected to start well and possibly even go to the playoffs again. Y'all started off 4-0 last season. You start off 1-3 this season. It shouldn't take a comment like that to fire you up. You should be fired up because y'all suck right now. And y'all should be mad at yourselves like, yo, we had everybody hyped up and we not doing what we supposed to do. That's what I want to hear, not that this comment got me hyped up. So we gonna see if we get them hyped up, you know. But at the end of the day, that really hurt me, the fact, not the criticism. Criticism I agree with. Do I feel that they were overhyped? No, because I think people went with what they saw. They felt like, I think people just forgot to take certain things in, as far as take certain things into consideration. But at the end of the day, I feel like certain people are overhyped? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think people just went what they thought with the Lions. They were going to be good. You know, nobody said they were going to win the NFC. I mean, nobody was saying that. We all knew that this was going to be a tough battle. I think Lions I expected the Lions just to play better and play more competitive, not necessarily have to be the comeback kids all day. You know, that was really my thing. So at the end of the day, I agree with some of the criticism from that rival general manager. And as for Raiola saying that gets him fired up, I hope it does get you fired up, but it's a shame it took a rival comment for that to get you fired up. You should be fired up because you're 1-3 and your team sucks. You're part of the reason. You need to get hyped up for that reasoning. Make sure your teammates are too, not because of some comment. Moving on, Plaxico Burress said he wants to join the Bears. What is up? Terrell Owens is tweeting that he wants to join New York, and now Plaxico said he wants to join the Bears. And basically he's saying this because rookie receiver Alshon Jeffrey got hurt, and he figures he could fit well there. As far as we know, nothing has been said, like, tryout or anything, yet. Obviously that could change. But, I mean, I could see him on there. I think he would be a nice little benefit. Like I said, obviously he's a nice, tall receiver who can go get the ball, no question. He gives, Jay Cutler another, consistent target. It would be nice to see him and Brandon Marshall, at receivers, definitely. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, the Bears, like I said, any team whose receivers are lacking right now, I say try it. I wouldn't mind at the end of the day if if the Bears were looking to try him. And I think he would fit well there. And like I said, possibly help take him to the next level if Jay Cutler can calm down and stop having meltdowns. But that's besides the point. Moving on to some of the NBA news that's been going on. Derrick Rose, as most people already know, he tore his ACL in the playoffs last season. So, the big thing with him is when is he going to be back? Is he going to be back in February? Is it going to be March? Is it going to be All-Star break? Whatever the case may be. But pretty much he made a statement today saying that he doesn't mind sitting out an entire year if his knee is not right, the entire season. And he said he would do that. And, at this point, I tore my ACL. I played high school ball, and I tore my ACL at the end of my sophomore year and had to miss my entire junior year because generally an ACL is a season missing injury. And I tore mine at the end of my sophomore year, so I missed my entire junior year. You are supposed to take your time. I don't like to see any player, especially a player like Rose with his caliber of play and his athleticism, you do not want to see him rush it. So when it was good to hear him basically say, if I'm not ready to play, I'm not coming out. I want to make sure when I come back, I am ready. There's no question. And as much as it is physical, it's also mental. And if you're mentally not ready to get back on the court, it's going to be even more harder because it's going to hinder you physically because you're constantly worried about your knee. And that's something you don't want. So just as much you have to make sure that you're physically strong as once you get back on that court or that field, if you're a football player or whatever, you have to also make sure that mentally you're ready because mentally can destroy you physically. Because I remember when I first got on the court, I was mentally just like, I didn't even want to make a cut. I didn't even want to do my dribble crossover because I felt like I was just something was gonna tear again. So it's very mental as it is. It's more mental to me than it is physical. So it was really just nice for me personally to hear him say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to sit out the entire season if it's for the better of my career and just for my organization, period. Because at the end of the day, Chicago Bulls, you don't want him re-tearing it. Trust me, that's worse than tearing it the first time. You don't want him re-tearing it or putting so much pressure on the other knee that he tears that. So at the end of the day, it was nice to just hear Rose say that. And hopefully he will not be out the entire season. But I only want to see him back this season if he's ready, both physically and mentally. Derrick Rose, take your time. I definitely want to see you get back on the court. I love the commercial, man. I want you back. So let's get you back on the court, but only when you're ready. Moving on, Carmelo Anthony, as most people know, had a lot of success over in the Olympics playing the 4 spot, playing the power forward position. However, he said he does not want to play the 4 position with the Knicks. He wants to go back on that wing. He wants to be the 3. He basically feels like they have guys at that position. He'd rather play his natural position, then possibly go down and play the 4 and the 5, but he doesn't really want to. He wants to stay on the wing. Now, here's an interesting stat that I just kind of want to throw out. Last season when Amari Stoudemire was out, Anthony did play some more power forward. And, he did, according to a site, he averaged 29.5 points at the 4 position and 17.4 at the 3 position. Now, me personally, I like to see it mixed. I like the idea of Melo playing a little bit of both. Because I feel like at the end of the day, he's a hard check at the 4 because he can spread that floor so well and he's not sure. That's the thing about Melo. Melo has that power and that nice speed. He's not super quick, but he has nice speed and power that, he can knock down 3, put the ball on the floor, get slower guys, back down and get smaller defenders in the post. So me personally, I would like to see him use both and mix. And then at the end of the day, it just depends on the matchups because the Knicks can go very small with having like an Amari Stoudemire at the 5 and then putting Anthony at the 4, which once again is going to cause a lot of defensive issues. Now that's the downside. Defensively, it can cause issues for the Knicks, but offensively, it can be good. And at the end of the day, you still got other players, like I said, obviously with Tyson Chandler and whatnot, who obviously that's the guys he's talking about who can play the position. But, I think that's the sacrifice that Carmelo's going to have to make. Carmelo keeps saying he wants the ring. He's willing to make the sacrifice, to make sure that his team is better. This, to me, is the start of that. We're not saying you got to stay at the 4, but you got to trust your offense, and your offense is going to click to me better if you're willing to, play a little bit of mix. Not just stay there, but you need to play some 4. You're going to have to trust your teammates. You're going to have to learn how to play nice with Amari Stoudemire. That's the only way, and make sacrifices. That's the only way that this team is going to be successful. So, Melo, I understand it, but at the end of the day, I think you should be playing some mixed stuff. Moving on to some other stuff that went on. J.R. Smith wants to start for the New York Knicks, but Coach Woodson, he's not feeling the same way. J.R. Smith basically doesn't want to be a 6 man. He wants to start. He feels that with Iman Shumpert still out recovering from his knee surgery, he sees an open and starting lineup. Now, Woodson's basic thing is he likes J.R. where he is now. He knows that J.R. could start, but he likes the idea of him coming off the bench. I mean, quite frankly, I like the idea of J.R. Smith coming off the bench. I see what he's saying. I get his point. I want to start, I want to get out here and kind of be that spark in the starting lineup. But at the end of the day, if I'm the Knicks, you're still going to need that nice spark off the bench, which JR can bring and has brought. So, if you start, I could see him doing a little bit of both. My whole thing is if you really just want to put him in the starting lineup, but I personally would like to see him come off the bench. I know that he was thinking about starting Michael Thompson at the 2 guard with the starting team. But, like I said, at the end of the day, the whole thing with JR, my whole thing is if you don't get what you want at the 6-man position, please, for the love of God, please do not, dim your playing level. Play at the high level that you continue to play at. Don't go pout and, because you're not starting like you want to, and then when you come off the bench, now you're not producing. And at the end of the day, as I said, for this Knicks team to be successful, we gotta make sacrifices. You gotta do what's for the better of the team. And I trust Mike Woodson to make decisions for what's the better of the team from start to finish. So, that being said, if he says you're better off coming off the bench, do what you got to do. Take pride in your role as a 6-man, just like Manu Ginobili has taken pride in his role, just like Jason Terry took pride in his role as 6-man before you and even after you, who will take pride in that role. Take pride in that role and do what you're supposed to do. Like I said, if he comes off the bench, I think he'll still be fine, but if he starts, he'll be fine as well. But I do like the idea of J.R. Smith just coming being that spark for the Knicks off the bench. I personally do. Moving on. Brooklyn Nets, it's been a little bit of drama with that, with Darren Williams saying he picked, the Dallas. He didn't pick Dallas because, Mark Sanchez not showing up to the meeting. But now there's been something going on where Darren basically told the general manager, Billy King, at one point not to wait to acquire Dwight Howard. And he said one thing, this is a quote from the general manager. He said, one thing Darren said to me is, please just don't wait on Dwight. We can't wait. We have the team that we need. Now, me personally, I always agree with that. And I didn't even mind going to get Dwight Howard. I just didn't like what they were willing to give up for Dwight Howard. Don't forget, when they were really trying to go get Dwight Howard, they were willing to give up Brook Lopez, Chris Humphries, Marshawn Brooks, 4 first-round picks to the Orlando Magic just for that one player. I personally didn't like that. I felt like you were already giving up too much. And in the end of the day, you kept all those guys, and then you added other people like Joe Johnson, and you end up re-signing Gerald Wallace, which I felt was a good move. So I kind of agree with what Darren did as far as just telling him not to, wait. And of course, we don't know if Darren saying that had the impact or if they just said, and obviously, Orlando was the one who turned it down. I mean, they rejected the offer, and, obviously Dwight's in LA now, but I agree with what Darren said. That's not what you needed to do. And like I said, I didn't mind you going to get Dwight. I just didn't like what you had to give up to get Dwight, to give up that many good players. And we're talking future players of this franchise for that one guy who can't make up his mind when it comes to anything. I never agree with. So I like the squad that they have now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they're doing. But I just thought that was a little bit of interesting news. And then last but not least, Tracy McGrady is done with the NBA. The 7-time NBA All-Star is headed to China to play for a team in the Chinese Basketball Association. McGrady is 33 years old. It's sad to see him go. I really love Tracy McGrady. In the back of my mind, I always just wonder if he could have stayed healthy. There's always plenty of debates. If he could have stayed healthy, where would him and Kobe be at right now? Because, there are plenty of people who always felt Tracy McGrady would have been better than Kobe Bryant. And the sad thing is we'll never know. But in the back of my mind, I always just wonder if he could have stayed healthy, where would McGrady be today? I'm sad to see him go, but at the end of the day, teams just, they didn't want him anymore. And I understand the team standpoint. When he's not injury prone, he's not producing. And when he's not producing, there's no reason to have an old guy on your team, and Tracy McGrady has never been the leadership type, so he's not like somebody you put on the bench who's going to be that leader in the locker room. So unfortunately for him, he had to leave. But, there's plenty of other players over in China doing their thing and other countries doing their thing. So it's nice to see him, get a chance to play and continue his career. NBA will miss him. In the back of my mind, though, I'm just always like, what if he hadn't had all those injuries? I mean, it's a safe bet that he would have been even more of a heck of a player than he already was. So, miss you, Tracy. Love you, man. You did your thing. Always wonder about you, but, good luck in trying to do your thing. And then this is my last little thing, guys. A little final note. This is kind of how I'm going to end the day, basically. There was a comment, or there's been rumors going around that, ESPN was reportedly going to spice up their pregame show by adding in writer Bill Simmons and former Magic head coach Stan Van Gundy. They were still going to keep Magic Johnson, but however, things changed, and it's been suggested that David Stern told ESPN, Commissioner David Stern told ESPN, that basically not to hire Stan Van Gundy. They still employed Jeff Van Gundy, but basically told him not to hire Stan Van Gundy. And it's always been rumors that, Stan and David Stern don't get along. As far as Stan Van Gundy and David Stern, they don't get along. I don't really care. I mean, some people, fans, I think were a little upset because they really want to see 2 Van Gundys on the show. I don't know. I mean, Jeff Van Gundy's cool. Stan Van Gundy as a commentator, I really didn't care much for him as a coach. As a commentator, I don't know what he would have brought to the table or not, if he would have been good or not. I mean, it might have made it more watchable, but I don't really make a big deal about it. I just thought it was funny that they're saying David Stern is over here interfering in NBA broadcasts and stuff now. If it is true, David Stern, shame on you, because you have no real reason not to have that man on there. I don't understand why you don't just put him on there. So what? But at the end of the day, I just thought it was a funny note. Like I said, some fans are upset because they wanted to see more Van Gundy. I don't like I said, I don't really care. I don't really care for Stan Van Gundy as a coach. I don't know what he would have been like as commentator because I've never seen him. But at the end of the day, David Stern apparently has told ESPN to not hire Van Gundy. So you still have Jeff, you just won't have Stan, at least for the time being. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Sports Talk with L-Beasley. Like I said, I know it was kind of a lot to take in. I know it was a lot to take in. But just like I said, just kind of wanted to give you guys a little something just to kind of think about some news that kind of went around. So be sure to let me know what you think of this episode, if you agree or disagree with anything that I had to say. If you have a topic you want me to discuss, or a team or a player you want me to discuss that I have not discussed yet, be sure to let me know. Always happy to honor my fans' requests. If you want to be a guest on my show, be sure to email me, tweet me, message me on Facebook, whatever you feel comfortable with. All my contact information is on the ending credits at the end of the show, so be sure to check that out and let me know. Go check out MoneyballSportswear.com. They are a huge supporter of Sports Talk with L. Beasley and me, Lauren Beasley. So go check them out. If you love Nike, you love Under Armour, you just like to look cold, go check out Moneyball. You're gonna love their clothes, and they're not expensive. They cold, they're inexpensive. You're gonna love them. Go check them out. Thank you again for tuning in. Thanks for all the fan comments. Keep them coming. Like I said, I love constructive criticism. I love to hear your comments. So just keep coming with the comments, and I will see you guys tomorrow to give you that Thursday night football game prediction. See you guys tomorrow.